Okay, good evening, members of the commission, staff, and members of the audience. This is the Historic Preservation Commission meeting of December 11th. Welcome and happy December. We have a relatively full agenda tonight, so we're going to go ahead and call to order and start with our native land acknowledgement statement. We wish to acknowledge that Tempe is the homeland of the native people who have inhabited this landscape since time immemorial. These ancestral lands of the O'odham, known as the Pima, Pipash, known as Maricopa, and their ancestors extend far beyond our city. This land continues to be spiritually connected to the O'odham of the Salt River Pima Maricopa Indian community and Gila River Indian community. We accept the responsibility of stewarding those places and solemnly pledge to consider this commitment in every action. Okay, commissioners, thank you for joining tonight here in the chambers. And I think we also have at least one or two online. So Dr. Lechner, could you do a roll call for us, please?
Absolutely, Chair. Commissioner Davis. Vice Chair Fackler.
Here.
Commissioner Karoka.
Here.
Commissioner Lamp.
Here.
Commissioner Melcher.
Here.
Commissioner Justice. Commissioner Robinson. She may be joining us later. Commissioner Williams.
Present.
Chair Woodson.
Present.
So we currently have 5 commissioners present, so that is more than enough for a quorum.
Thank you, Dr. Lechner. All right, moving on, agenda item 1, call to audience. We do have one person wishing to address the commission. A little bit unusual because it's not related to an agenda item, but Mr. Moore, we will give you your 3-minute allotted time to present your comment.
Hello, Robert Moore, Tempe, Arizona. I just want to draw the Commission's attention towards the Donnell Plaza redevelopment effort and ongoing discussions regarding the demolition of the mid-century structure that stands at the center of the plaza, which is currently owned by the City of Tempe. While understated in its clean mid-century style, the building is nevertheless represents a pivotal period of transformation for Tempe, from agricultural trade center to hearth of the valley's suburban growth. Designed by local architect Barry Groen, in 1963, the mid-century retail building still maintains the original unifying facade of the plaza, featuring ground-to-ceiling windows and vertical hatched awnings. Even though the plaza is now over 60 years old, a recent structural engineering review of the building's foundation walls and roof truss system showed the building to be in good condition and a promising candidate for adaptive reuse, with only minor awning issues that could be simply resolved by a handyman. We see again and again the public voice their opinion on the importance of supporting local character and heritage through adaptive reuse and preservation strategies. The Tempe Arts and Culture Plan, the Tempe Historical Preservation Plan, Neighborhood Character Area Plans, the 2050 General Plan, go into detail on the importance of recognizing the significance of the community's built environment and tangible connections to our history. While some industry politicos will argue otherwise, building with the local character isn't a stance against new development, as we have many options of how density can be incorporated into our neighborhoods thoughtfully and effectively without resorting to heavy-handed tactics. With this in mind, I hope the Historical Preservation Commission might lean into this conversation on Donnell Plaza's future and help encourage further discussion on the opportunities for integrating adaptive reuse and preservation solutions. Thanks for your time, consideration, and service.
Thank you, Mr. Moore. Dr. Lechner, I know we won't comment on this, but by any chance, is this something that's coming up on a future agenda, or have we already discussed this?
We can talk about agendizing it, and you and I have to talk soon because the next meeting agenda is due next week. So we'll
Okay.
chat and we can
Very good.
sort that out. Sure.
Thank you. All right, thank you. Moving on, agenda item 2, approval of September 11th, 2024 meeting minutes. Commissioners, you have the minutes in your meeting materials. Are there any comments or edits for the minutes?
Chair, this is Commissioner Williams, and I have some comments.
Commissioner Williams.
On page 2, the fourth paragraph, starting with Commissioner Robertson, there's 2 words from. There's 2 in there. The last paragraph on the same page, the second sentence, Phoenix is spelled wrong. Let's see. Page 4, fourth paragraph. The 9th line where staff will continue to work with CEPTED staff on other principles, design and principles. I think principles is added twice in that sentence. And on page 7, the last paragraph, I think that's supposed to say the Elias Rodriguez house. Am I correct, Brenda? Okay. And also, Brenda, I wasn't sure if the Elsendreth house is spelled correctly. Yeah, if that was spelled correctly. Okay. I think that's an L instead of an I. Those are all my comments.
Thank you, Commissioner. Any other comments or edits? All right, hearing none, we will entertain a motion for approval.
Move approval of the minutes as corrected.
Thank you. And a second?
Second, Commissioner Williams.
Thank you, Commissioner. And all who vote aye, say aye.
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 Any opposed, say nay. Motion passes. Thank you. Okay, agenda item 3, approval of agenda. If there are no comments otherwise, or,
Chair.
yes, Vice Chair?
I was wondering, items 4 and 5 will look to have lengthy presentations and or discussions. Can we move item 6 up to item 4? It's a short presentation, and just so we can get that one out of the way.
One moment. Dr. Lechner, any issue with that?
I don't. I'd ask Jennifer Daniels, though, do we know if that presenter is online? Oh, you're right. I didn't see you, Rebecca. I'm sorry. Jeez. Okay. So the answer is no, but she is
Okay.
present. She is present, so
Um,
I have no objections to that now.
Very good. Any other commissioners want to second that proposed movement of the agenda item?
Second.
Thank you. All right, we will amend the agenda to move item 6 up to become the new item 4. All right. All who approve the amended agenda, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed, say nay. All right, motion passes. Agenda approved as amended. Okay, Ms. Rothman, you have the podium for agenda item 4, presentation on City of Tempe's public art plan.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for having me. We're at an interesting time in public art. The Tempe Public Art Program has been in existence for quite some time now. And what we're doing is looking into the future to plan accordingly. And I wanted to share where we are and hope to engage you in taking part in where we're going. So Tempe Public Art is part of the Tempe Arts and Culture Division. We're one of 4 work groups, and I always like to set the stage by introducing who we are and how we're a little bit different from the others. The Tempe History Museum, I'm sure this group, more than any other I've spoken to, is very familiar with the Tempe History Museum and all their exhibits and performances and programs that they offer at the facility. This is a facility that actually, and a team that we work really closely with. We're really fortunate even to be officed out of the Eisendrath House. So Brenda Abney's team is somebody we work with closely, but we also have artists who go and do research on sites here. The Tempe Center for the Arts is another area that we work with closely. We basically collaborate with all of our partners in the division. They're a little bit different in that they have a visual arts gallery as well as performing arts, both dance, music, theater, and they're active all year round as well. Where Tempe Public Art gets a little confused is with our community arts team, and community arts is the team that brings you Arts in the Park. They actually work with the community to get the community involved in the creative and art making process. So they're bringing artists to the table at the Edna Arts Center to teach workshops. They're working at Arts and Parks. They're bringing the public into that creative making process. And then as you jump up to that hot pink arrow, you'll see Tempe Public Art. What our team does, which makes us unique, is we work in the built environment. And we bring artists to work with design teams, with stakeholders, with engineers, architects, landscape architects to create artwork in Tempe that can be temporary, landmarks, etc., but basically gives an art experience to all who live, play, work, and visit the streets of Tempe. We currently have 130 works of complete built environment artwork in the city's collection. This does not account for all the work that you see that has been privately commissioned. We additionally have 196 pieces of portable works of art, and this is the artwork that you see often when you go into facilities like the library or any other facility where there might be a framed work of contemporary artwork. We maintain this collection. We care for it. Again, this is an area that we're actively looking at regularly. And we currently have about 15 pieces that are in various stages of design and completion and fabrication right now. The image that you're seeing is from our GIS map. And I want to draw attention to that because we do have an active map that shows you all the art in Tempe. It gives you information on every piece that the city has either partnered with or created as part of this program. But we also have a little tab where if you see damage to a piece, you can let us know. And that helps us maintain the collection as well. We create a pre-qualified artist list that acts as a resource for community members who are looking to work with an artist in Tempe and wanting to commission someone. We update that list every 2 to 3 years. And then we review and consult on works of art and private development with both the community development, and economic development teams. So we're busy. What does a public art plan do? We have an active plan that we refer to on a yearly basis. We actually update that over a 3-year rolling basis. We're a CIP program. So much like construction projects, sometimes our projects are quick and sometimes they take a while to come into fruition, right? This is a little bit different of a plan. This is more of a comprehensive plan to help us prioritize and strategize where and how public art will be programmed into the future. It'll help us identify locations. It'll help us identify where areas of need might be and help us establish guidelines for the selection and commissioning of artwork. The way that we see this plan working best is to prioritize based on community input as well as looking at our current assets. And we want to strategize that investment to align with community needs so that we're diversifying and creating equity in the program. And what I mean by equity is making sure that access to public art is available to every corner of Tempe. Where are those areas that might need more? Where are the areas that might be inundated? Where are people going to access the art? And diversify it to reach a broader audience in terms of what types of artwork, who's creating the artwork. We also want this plan to help us identify where the significant areas of strength are and where there are some areas that we need to bolster in the program. To do this, we've hired consulting team Designing Local. They have over 10 years experience working on public art master plans, as well as historic preservation plans, landscape architecture, creative placemaking, creative placekeeping. And for all of these reasons, they were a perfect fit for a city like Tempe. They're very familiar with the region, having worked in this area. One of the things that really made them stand out was their approach to outreach. They have various ways and layers of working with the community, both in terms of a digital survey, which we do have actively available right now, meeting people where they're at in terms of pop-ups, which I'll talk about in a minute, and then having actual events where they've invited the public to take part. Our outreach, we started working with Designing Local back in August, and we've been hitting the ground running on outreach on this plan effort since the beginning of November. So just in the past few weeks, we've attended pop-ups at Estrada and Meyer Park. We were at the Tempe Jam. On December 5th, we had a fabulous event at the Eisendrath House where we invited artist Jeff Zischke, who used to live in the Eisendrath actually in the 1980s, to come and talk about his time there. We had the Tempe History Museum and volunteers as well as some staff giving tours of the house. And then we had the consultant be able to facilitate a conversation with the attendees. We've had pop-up events in businesses in both South and North Tempe, as well as community centers like Escalante Center, where we were last Friday. And then we're doing boards and commission presentations. We'll continue to do this outreach through the end of January and beyond. The survey, the online survey, is open through January 31st. But once we have those survey results, we'll be able to see, have we hit our mark? Have we really reached as many people to get that input that we need for this plan? With that, I wanted to bring this to your attention to make sure that this commission was aware and able to take part, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Great, thank you. Very informative presentation. And if you could back up just a few slides. So what you're doing right now as part of this outreach is in support of this current comprehensive plan that you were just referring to?
Correct.
Okay. And what's your projection for completion of that plan?
That's a good question. We expect to have a draft plan by late spring, early summer, and a complete plan by this time next year.
Okay, very good. I'll first open it up to see if any other commissioners have any questions for you. Any other questions or comments?
I have questions.
Yes.
So the Art and Culture Master Plan, I believe recommended increasing the public art to 2% from 1%, and also recommended including multi-residential project in art in private development. Are there any, is this opportunity to go for these couple recommended items?
It's certainly an opportunity to revisit that. The consulting team was given the 2015 plan, and we've mentioned these items amongst others that were recommended for them to consider in their conversations with stakeholders and the public. So kind of taking a pulse to see where we are now versus where we were in 2015, but yes.
Thank you. Especially I would like to see the in the multi-residential project, because there are so many and kind of missing out on them by not being included.
Sure.
Thank you.
Chair Woodson,
Thank you. Yes.
I'll go ahead and pass around this little flyer that has a QR code on it. If you haven't given your input yet, please take a camera photo of that and be able to offer your own input to that plan.
Great. Thank you. Yes.
Oddly, my name and email address did not end up on this slide, and I'm not sure why, but certainly if you have any questions about the plan, you can also reach me directly. Our website also has a link to that survey that Brenda just shared.
Great. I'm just curious, I mean, it sounds like you're doing some public event outreach. I mean, is this something that you've sent out some information like in the newsletter for the city that goes around with the utility bill or anything like that?
Yeah, actually, the survey is in the registration opportunities for the winter registration for community services, that QR code that you're getting. In terms of the event that was at the Eisendrath House, we did do a press release as well as an email blast, 2 email blasts. It went out through neighborhood services and community services, amongst others. So that was pretty well attended. We ended up having about 77 people.
Oh, great.
So I think we did okay on that front. On the other events, we've been leveraging off of events that were already planned. So in the case of the Tempe Jam, we had over 400 people come to our booth that night. So we're really trying to, again, meet people where they are at. For future events, we'll certainly be doing as much outreach as we can to get people involved.
Excellent. And I will certainly take a look at the opportunity to provide some comments, but since you're here tonight, I haven't seen the 2015 plan. Is there a historic preservation component in any of that plan, and are you looking to enhance that aspect of your plan?
The 2015 plan is actually an arts and culture plan. It's not public art specific. So it does mention historic preservation as part of the plan. And in fact, it's one of the things that helps bond the arts and culture division as a whole. So that is very much in there and very much present.
Okay, so is this plan an update of that plan, or is it a
No.
new plan?
It is a plan that it only focuses on the public art program.
Okay.
The 2015 plan focused on all 4 work groups that I mentioned in the beginning. So it was really about the division as a whole. This is only for the public art program moving forward. But I do believe that historic preservation plays a role in that as we're talking about the built environment, and therefore your comments and input would be welcomed.
Okay, very good. All right, well, thank you. Any other comments?
I have a comment.
Yes, Commissioner.
Have you shared this survey with some of the Native American art organizations like Cahokia and Hookyu? Because I would like to see more Native American artisans be part of the city's public art projects. You know, it's a way
Yes.
to expand their artwork outside of their communities.
Absolutely. In fact, yes is the answer to that. We had the consulting team meet with Hookyu prior to launching the survey and to review the principles that they designed, and we're actively working with some of those artists right now on projects, both transit-related projects, but also we were partnered with DTA in the recent mural completion on 3rd Street. So there's a lot of that conversation going, and we have shared it as well.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. All right, unless there's any other questions, we thank you for the information and good luck with the plan.
Thank you. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. All right, moving on to our next agenda item, which is now item 5, update on pending redevelopment of First Congregational Church site located at 101 East 6th Street. The presenter is Darren Sender. And Mr. Sender? Miss Sender, I'm sorry.
Right. Get this. Okay, did we figure this out? I don't need it yet, but I'll need it eventually. Thank you. All right. Sorry. All right. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission. My name is Darren Sender, Sender Associates, 464 South Farmer in Tempe. And thank you all for taking this time tonight. I know you have a lot of other things on the agenda here, and it's taking a little bit of time, but we really appreciate it. I'm here to present an updated plan from when we were here back in July 12th, I believe, 2023. So we've been working quite a bit with the city and with, well, all of the city, I think, you know, Ryan and Zach and April and Jeff and everybody here. We've been working quite a bit. I would just like to start out by introducing our team. We have Doug Tishner. I keep butchering that, I'm sorry. But Doug is with Core Spaces, and he'd just like to introduce himself and say a few words.
Hi, Doug Titchener, Core Spaces Vice President of Development, co-developer of this project. We came on mid to early this year. We're not in January yet, but just grateful to be here and available to answer any questions like the balance of the team here. So thank you.
So as you mentioned, as Doug mentioned, he is co-developer. So since we last met in 2023, we have taken on a co-developer of the project. So this is a Wexford Developments and Core Spaces development now. And a couple of things have changed. Sam Gordon with Wexford is still involved. He is still the name and the face of Wexford Development. He's co-founder and principal of that. So he is joint ventured with Core Spaces, of which Doug is spearheading the project out here for Core Spaces. We also have Mike Duffy here tonight with RSP. He is an associate principal with RSP, and he is responsible for the design of the project. And we'll show you that a little bit after I'm done. And then Jen Boblik is with Sender Associates. She's with my team. She does all the work in my office. So a little bit of background. I know many of you were here last year, but you know, it's been over a year now. It's been almost a year and a half, I guess. So I'll just go over this quickly. Wexford Developments purchased this property in the First Congregational Church property itself, so just that portion of it in 2016, after the congregation had been diminishing, its membership had been dwindling. In fact, one of my best friends from college, his family was a member of this congregation, and it had just been dwindling. So it was up for sale. Sam at Wexford had purchased it with the intent of developing the entire property. In fact, he proposed at one point the demolition of the entire site, which would include the Bluefish office building that was part of this, the church buildings at that time, the sanctuary building, and the outbuildings. And then when we came to you, by the time we came to you, he also had the House of Tricks site. And we were looking at demolishing that site as well. So it was kind of an all-encompassing project. And the demo permit was submitted around November of 2020 for that. And then a little bit during that period of time while he was purchasing the property, after he purchased the property, and then the Bluefish site is sort of just on 7th Street, just east, sandwiched between the church's property and then House of Tricks. Once he was purchasing that, he became friends with the Tricks, with Robin and Bob. And so he became friends with theirs as an adjacent neighbor, started talking, and found out that they were looking to retire soon. They wanted to sell the property. They knew the value. It's downtown Tempe. Another restaurant wasn't really feasible there for the for the money. So he knew that they were looking at that. They became friends, and ultimately Sam purchased the House of Tricks property in 2021, and then redesigned the project. And we kind of had to redesign the entire thing at that point. Stopped everything, redesigned the project, and to include the Tricks site. So during that period of time, obviously with the demo permit kind of out there, and the sanctuary building and the church and the Harry Walker House on the Tricks property, there was a lot of discussion with the city. What do we do? How do we preserve some of this? And the initial project was small. This project is a little bit bigger. There was an opportunity talking with John Southard and various other members of the city at the time to try and preserve that. So we had quite a few discussions, and we determined, or Sam determined at that point, it was financially feasible to do a project and then preserve the sanctuary portion of the site. So we looked at that, kind of changed the design again. A lot of redesigning going on here, and including just recently. So he did that, and then we started talking about the Harry Walker House. And I don't know if you're familiar with, I know you know Tricks. There's the restaurant kind of area. We had a couple tables in there, but obviously the patio is the big portion of it. There's a little building just to the east of the bar patio area, mainly for small parties. I think I was in it 3 times, really just used for parties and events, and that's the Harry Walker House. No one ever saw it. It was completely covered with trees and shrubs, and you saw the door really of it. But that is listed on the historic eligible list, and it is on the national list. So we started talking about that, and unfortunately it's right in the middle of the development site. So we couldn't really keep it there. We couldn't really preserve it. It was right in the middle. We looked at that. We looked very hard at that. And we started talking to the city about relocating it and using it as a focal point somewhere in the city. So that was about, that was 2021, 2022. And that's kind of where this plan originated of preserving the sanctuary building and then transferring that title to the city, and letting the city utilize that and preserve that, and then also relocating the Harry Walker House. In early 2024, as Doug mentioned, Core Spaces joined as joint venture partner of the team, and then we kind of further refined the design. So the design is different from what you saw before, but very similar in massing. We didn't want to make major changes to the design. It had been through a lot of review by planning staff and everybody else at the city. So we kept the main massing of the project and some of the really cool stuff that was happening at the ground level, and just kind of made some refinements to it. So today we're here to show you that new project and outline really the entitlements and the process we have to go through from here on out, and then also what your role is and in terms of the entitlement requests that we're going to make at a future hearing with you. So I will quickly then go through. I've got, let me see if this is. So yeah, I don't have the aerial. The site is located, I'm sure you're familiar with it. It's located at the northeast corner of Myrtle and 7th Street. It goes between 7th Street and 6th Street. It's kind of like an L, and encompasses, like I said, the House of Tricks, Bluefish, and then the church property. It's surrounded by the Brickyard New Orchid House, City Hall, the Residence Inn, the ICC, the Islamic Community Center is our neighbor right there who we've been talking to, and then parking lot to the east of that. And then to the south is the Union. So it's kind of surrounded by a mix of things. The general plan on the property, can I use this now? Oh. There we go. Is it upside down? There we go. Focusing. There we go. General Plan 2050 designates this and all of downtown as mixed-use urban core, over 25 dwelling units per acre. So this is in the heart of the downtown area. And then the zoning is very similar with the CC zoning. That's, again, downtown core type zoning. You can kind of see the H on here, but I've got a better aerial. Oops. There. Sorry, there's no north arrow. The historic section of the church property, so this outline is all of the First Congregational Church property that was purchased. And the history is a little fuzzy on what was designated. Sometimes it just says the church itself, sometimes it says all of the property, but the legal, advertising notes give an acreage. So this equals that same acreage. So we assume this was all that was designated, and we understand that was what was designated. What we're proposing, I will show you in a minute when we get to talk about that. So on to the requests. Sorry, thank you. There's quite a few things that we want to talk to you about in the future. A few of them are basic zoning requests. We're requesting the PAD overlay so that the CC turns into CC PAD. We're also in the TOD, the Transportation Oriented Development Overlay, which helps with the ridership of the light rail, streetcar, bus routes, and everything. So we're looking at doing the PAD, adding on. And what a PAD does is that sets the development standards. It sets the building's height. It sets the setbacks. It sets the lot coverages and all of the development sides of things. And I don't know if you can see, that's the table kind of to the right here. We're also requesting a DPR review, which is all the cool stuff, the elevations, the colors, the materials, how it looks, how it sits on the site planning, landscape plan. And basically, according to the city code and the zoning ordinance, if we come in with an entitlement application, the HPC has to give a recommendation of it. So that's why we're showing you all this stuff tonight. It's kind of a lot to look at. We're also requesting an alley abandonment for the alley that goes in between. And we will be preserving a pedestrian easement through that, so it's not like we're building on top of it. We're building over it, but we're preserving it as a pedestrian walkway. We'd love to talk to Rebecca about some public art that we're proposing in that area. And we'll also have an access easement and an emergency access easement through that area. We also need a plat that will be processed as well. And then part of the Historic Preservation Commission's role here is also to review our request to remove part of that H that's on the zoning. So the H is a zoning overlay. It's actually a zoning action, and it shows up on the zoning maps. So for our purposes, we would like to take this portion here, which is what we're going to be developing on, take the H off of this portion and leave it on this portion so that it looks like this. So we'd retain the historic designation on the sanctuary. So that is a request to delist the remaining portion of it. And we have to do that by a rezoning. The other thing we have to ask for, and what we're going to be asking for, is your review of the proposed development in general, and also your review of a certificate of appropriateness for the alteration of the existing sanctuary. And what I mean by that is this. Switch over. Oh, sorry. No, this is a lot, sorry. So this is the existing First Congregational Church. And you can see this portion here is the sanctuary building. These portions here are non-contributing parts that are, there's a classroom, an office building. Some construction was in there while they were building the Union. And I think some other construction companies had been in there while they were building some other sites in this area downtown. This portion that's outlined will be the portion that will be demoed, will be raised. And what we need from you is a review of what the sanctuary building will look like on this piece right here and this piece right here when this is removed. And what we propose, and Mike can talk about it more if you're curious, we propose to just fill it in as, you know, an existing building, so it looks like it was never torn down or never there before. So that's we would need your review of that after the admin and classroom buildings are gone. And then also we would need your review of a demolition permit for those non-contributing structures that we're proposing to raise. And with all of that, I'd like to bring up Mike, who can show you kind of all the cool pictures and kind of the design features of the project and what we're proposing to do today.
Thank you, Darren. Commission, appreciate your time. My name is Mike Duffy with RSP Architects. I'm an associate principal, and I've been leading the design of this project since the very beginning. Happy to share where things are at currently. I do apologize. Some of the graphics on this plan are a little bit out of date, but I think they get corrected as we move forward. The project itself is a 29-story residential tower. It is multifamily. It has ground floor amenity uses and activated street front along 7th Street. It has 3 levels of a parking garage above, and then the residential tower above that parking. At the top of the residential tower, there's an amenity deck and pool. At the top of the parking podium, there's some outdoor spaces as well. Actually, I'll stay at this site for a few more minutes. The project is sited such that the front door is off of 7th Street, and we've associated most of the massing along 7th Street to be complementary to the density of use that happens along 7th Street. What that allowed us to do is free up space at the north of the site to preserve the sanctuary, give it a little bit of space, and separate also vehicular and pedestrian entrance points. As we move into the site plan, the main entrance is off of 7th Street, and that's pedestrian only. We have a restaurant at the southwest corner, and then we have amenity, lobby, lounge functions along 7th Street. We have vehicular access off of 6th Street. That's where the majority of the residents will come to and from. The ramp is immediately off of that as you travel south and enter the site. And then there will be some service uses that happen there as well. The other piece that's unique about our site is it's bisected by the alley, which, as Darren mentioned, is going to be maintained for pedestrian access, but will not be used heavily for vehicular access east and west. We've also been making a lot of updates to the loading area, which is at the east side of the property, in collaboration with our neighbors, the ICC to the east. And we'll have some updates in the future plan. This shows an enlargement of that area. Better shows the speed ramp at the north of the property and the proximity to the sanctuary. The architecture for the overall development is one that leverages contextual color palette and attempts to break down the larger masses into contrasting volumes to provide for variation and dynamic movement throughout the development. This is visible from all sides, given some of the development that is around it, and really needs to contribute four-sided architecture. There's really no back door to this project, so every facade is of importance. And we've tried to heighten every facade as much as we can. You can see some of the sanctuary in the foreground of these renderings here. And then as we look back at the 7th Street frontage, once we get to the pedestrian scale, we're really trying to play up warm materials, a lot of vegetation, a lot of landscaping, and activated uses to really add a dynamic presence along 7th Street. Circling back to the sanctuary itself, as Darren mentioned, and you can see in the lower left-hand corner, the roof plan for the sanctuary, we show the areas that were there previously that will be repaired and replaced to match the existing. And you can see also in enlargement 4 there, dashed lines for where the demolished structure would be removed, and then those areas would be repaired to match the existing structure. What you also see here is what I would consider sort of a test fit. So we've also tried to take some time to figure out how best to use a site like this, and one of the potential uses could be a restaurant or retail, and so we've planned some outdoor space and some trash and loading and things like that. That is not intended to be committal, and that will be up to the city of Tempe after the property is transferred to them. I believe that's the last slide, and I'm happy to answer any questions if you have them. Or if Darren, you have anything else to add.
All right. Thank you. So is that the end of your presentation? Okay. Thank you very much for sharing the update. And I know that tonight this is mostly just for our information now. It's a status update, but I'm sure that some of the commissioners would have some questions for you. So I'm going to open up the floor to any commissioners who might have any questions for the presenters tonight. Yes, Vice Chair.
Darren, what is the status of the walker? You said you were working with the city and then that's it. So-
Yeah, sorry, Commissioner. So we've been working for quite a while on this. We've got a consultant on board for a year and a half, year and a half now, I think, trying to determine A, if it was structurally sound to move, B, where to move it, and C, how to get it there. We found out that we can move it, A. B, where we're going to move it, we just found, right, we can mention that. So it's new information. The city has decided that we should look at the J.C. Park, Hardy Yard area to utilize that as a building that they can utilize at the park, but also still be seen from the area and somewhere that people can still acknowledge it and see the building in place. And then we're trying to figure out right now with that consultant how we get it there. And I don't know if you're familiar with relocating a structure in total, but streetlights have to come down, wires overhead, electrical wires and things have to be moved. So we're working on that plan, trying to figure out how all that works. And the consultant has to fly out here and physically look at the route. And I believe that should be happening in the next month. January. Yeah, that should be happening in January. So a lot of work has gone into it already. So it's moving down its path. Yeah, it should be pretty quickly now.
Thank you for that. It's nice to know that it has a home.
Yeah.
Not sure about the appropriateness of the home.
Well, a lot of things go into that, Commissioner. I know there's a lot of places it could have been moved to, but it has to be somewhere that we can get to. And it has to be close enough somewhere we can get to as well.
Did you look at Mitchell Park?
I know the city looked everywhere. And it was in combination with all of the departments at the city.
Yeah, it's more a contextual thing. Yes, it'll be a nice place for it to rest, but it's totally out of context as far as the residential period, time, architecture.
There might be a plan for that. Don't know.
Sorry if I could interject. Could you tell everyone again where you're planning to locate this and how did this decision get made?
Yes, this was a decision by the city. And it's J.C. Park, right? It's on 5th Street, just west of downtown, right by my office there, just west of Farmer, where the Multi-Gen Center is, Boys and Girls Club, and on Hardy. So it's on Hardy north of University, and then there's that little park there, somewhere in the Hardy Yard there.
Where would the house front?
I don't know yet.
Okay.
I don't know yet. But that was a decision that the city, looked at for quite some time.
Who in the city looked at that?
If I could clarify, yes, so the city hasn't made an official decision on this.
Right,
Certainly,
right. That's,
this is
right.
part of the negotiative efforts for a potential development agreement. So these are elements that are in play right now with that process
Yeah.
at this time.
Yes, it will be part of a development agreement, but
Ultimately, there has to be a public hearing, public decision on a draft development agreement. We're hopeful that that coordination time efforts, either the development agreement will happen first, or we're hoping that the timing of the scheduling of the zoning map amendment process will come to a hearing date where we'll look at all of those elements.
Where in the
together.
park are you looking?
I'm not clear, I'm not certain, I'm not parties to that conversation. Usually that's involved with economic development.
and I'm not sure that's been decided yet either.
'Cause it
I
has a
haven't heard.
whole lot to do with context. Is where you put it in that park. It's one of the reasons I was liking Mitchell Park was because the entire park, the school, are surrounded by like buildings.
Hmm.
Better context.
Okay.
But like I say, it's nice to know that it will have a home. Too bad we can't put it over there with the rest of them by the depot. So
Right.
Any further questions,
That's all.
Vice Chair?
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions or comments from other commissioners? Anyone online? All right, I have a few items just to ask. So let me first say thank you all for coming back because it has been a while since we've seen an update on this, and it's clear you all have been working quite hard on this, so thank you for your efforts. And I appreciate the city staff also. It sounds like you all have been working with the developers pretty intensively as well. Yeah, first, that was going to be, my first question was about that house and the status, because it wasn't quite clear from the materials received. So I'm very pleased. So I appreciate everyone's efforts to try to save that house. I mean, that was a big question at that meeting in July of last year. So thank you all for finding a potential solution. Sounds like there's still some things to be worked out with that, but the nuts and bolts are, behind the main decision of getting it preserved. So thank you for that. So that was one of my major questions. And then with regard to the church site, a couple of the things that when your presentation compared to your materials, just want to clarify. Is and I think I understand what your proposal will be for the delisting of which part, and I know we'll be having further discussion about that at some other point. So is the entire church parcel is in your possession now, and you're going to, what are you going to do? You're going to turn over part of it to the city, or how's that? What's the proposal there?
Yeah, a very good question for clarification. Yes, currently Wexford and Core Spaces owns all of this. So all of the church property, the Bluefish property, and the House of Tricks property. And in the development agreement thank you, Ryan, for clarifying that was not set in stone yet, but in the development agreement, part of the agreement is that we would transfer title to the sanctuary portion. And you can kind of see in this rendering, in this drawing, the hatched building is the sanctuary building after those outbuildings are removed. And then the dotted line with the straight dotted line, I don't know, can you see the mouse on there?
Oh, I think someone's, yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
You're tracing it right now. So
Yep.
effectively, we've established a new property line around, with an offset around the sanctuary piece, and that portion of the property would be transferred back to the city of Tempe, that the church then occupies.
Okay. And then, so could you maybe just briefly take us through, I mean, what was the decision-making behind this? I mean, I presume your intention was to preserve the sanctuary, which is ideal, and we again, also thank you for that from our point of view. Did it just not fit into the development proposal, or what's the rationale for the title transfer?
Oh, in terms of transferring it versus taking it on from a
Right.
development perspective overall?
It was requested.
That was a
by the
request from the city?
Yeah.
Okay, was that part of the proposal that we saw last year, or?
It was.
Okay,
Yeah, it was, Mr.
I
Chair.
see, got it. And then you said something about restaurant or some other function, so is that just something that may or may not happen in the future, or what's the future? And maybe Dr. Lechner, you could add in here, I don't know what the future, what are you all talking about with this in the future here?
Yeah, I think those are just ongoing conversations. So there's nothing set in stone, but those are just, some of the ideas are bandied about, restaurant, retail spaces, Mike Duffy mentioned. So again, these are not decisions or definites, but just, ideas that have been discussed. So there's no clarity at this point about what that space might be used for.
Okay.
And the intent from a planning purpose is we didn't want to set up a situation where we've set up a boundary for a site that makes it unusable for a different use in the future. So this is more like what I would consider sort of a test fit, or just, okay, this is a hypothetical use that might be suited for a structure of this size, and it can function as its own property on its own. We didn't want to create a solution again, or a situation where it cannot be provided with service or have adequate space around it to do a number of things in the future. So we wanted to make sure there was enough flexibility for what is right now an unknown future use.
Okay. All right, well, thank you for that. Vice Chair, another question?
Follow up to that. On the sanctuary building, understand the transfer to the city's title. Are there any parking rights associated with that?
That's being discussed.
Okay,
There's a lot of parking on 6th Street, meter parking, and the CC district does not require any parking for a building of that
I
size.
understand that, but
But yeah, it's being discussed.
yeah, a few spaces for key individuals, that sort of thing in the structure.
Yes, sir.
That's all I had.
All right, thank you. Any further questions or comments? No, then before we let you go, Dr. Lechner, could you or both of you just sort of indicate, so what's the future steps here, and what do you expect our involvement to be with this?
Yeah, definitely. The future steps are moving forward through the entitlements with Ryan's department, with planning, and also keeping Dr. Lechner involved, as well as you all as well. I think we're probably going to come back for another study session prior to the hearing that we're going to have. Your hearings happen before any of the other hearings. So we will be back in front of you for a formal hearing prior to DRC or council. So you will be the first ones to see anything formal. But if we have time in the schedule, we would love to come back and show you kind of the final plans before we kind of set everything in stone. We'll be working with staff, we'll be working with economic development, we'll be working with everyone we've been working with so far, making sure everyone's comfortable. We've been having a lot of discussions with the ICC, the Islamic Community Center next door, and having great neighbor conversations with them. And so we're going to continue that. The next steps are that we will be submitting a resubmittal of this packet that to Ryan in the planning department. We'll resubmit everything with our more updated plans that Mike had mentioned to you. We've got some updated ground floor plans. We'll submit those, and then we'll start talking about hearing process and hearing timing. And sorry? Yeah, oh yeah. Neighborhood meeting we have scheduled for January 7th. We're sending out the notices next week. So we'll have neighborhood input, neighborhood meeting, get that forward. We've got the things I mentioned earlier, we've got an abandonment of that alley to process and to file and process. We have a plat that we need to file and process, and then we've got to submit the demo permit, which we should do next week. We were trying to do it earlier this month, but we should probably have that. And that's, again, that's just for those, the outbuildings around the sanctuary. It's not for Harry Walker or the sanctuary building. So we got a lot of work to do.
Well, clearly, but yeah, thank you. That's, appreciate that. One last comment, and I suspect Dr. Lecter's brought this up because both of these properties are on the National Register, correct? The church?
Just the Walker House. So the First Congregational Church is only locally designated.
Oh, okay. All right. So I presume any involvement with the keeper of the register would be handled in due course.
Correct. Yeah. I mean, in terms of, moving a historic building, that's, usually that's relocating a historic building. It's usually grounds for delisting. I mean, it's not necessarily set in stone, but that's usually the procedure. So, yeah, we definitely keep at first we'd be in touch with the local, the state historic preservation office to determine whether they would recommend delisting for that building. But yes, I will be in touch with them to discuss that further.
Very good. Okay. Thank you, Ms. Sender, and everyone else on your team. We appreciate the update, and we'll be looking forward to hearing more on this soon.
Thank you. Thank
Great.
you for your time.
Okay. Thank you. Okay. All right. Moving on to our next agenda item, which is now item 6. Update on request for proposals for redevelopment of city-owned land consisting of approximately 0.34 acres, et cetera, et cetera. And we appreciate the presenters tonight, and they are here with us today. Thank you for coming.
Good evening, Commissioners and Chairperson Woodson. I'm April Kroner. I'm the Deputy Economic Development Director. So it's great to be before you guys tonight and happy we have a chance to talk to you about this property and the potential redevelopment of it prior to issuance of a new RFP. This evening, Meg Zemica, one of our program managers, is going to walk you through the past RFP that was issued and the direction our team received from Council to move forward with issuance of a new RFP for the property that is adjacent to the Hackett House.
Thank you. Good evening. Thank you for having us here. I'm going to provide, as April said, some context for the previous RFP and then where we're headed for reissuing it. And so we are looking for feedback from you all about those plans. The original RFP was issued June 25th of 2024. And that was for a high-rise mixed-use project, including housing, a boutique hotel that was highly amenitized, and then preferred first-floor event space for Tempe sister cities. September 6th, 2024, it closed with no submittals. So our team sought feedback from entities that had shown interest but did not respond. They did not end up responding to the RFP. And that feedback that was provided was that the hotel component was prohibiting for them. Some of them were focused on only mid-rise projects. And the cost of the first floor event space would be too great due to column spacing from an event space and then moving up to residential. And then site constraints that include a stairway easement and then the need to relocate utilities, the communication and power line that are located 36 inches below grade. And that created a small buildable area that wouldn't allow much for the development. So in September, we went to Council for direction on reissuing the RFP. And they gave us direction to pursue an RFP that was smaller scale, mid-rise, so 8 to 12 floors approximately, residential units, and 30% of the units being workforce, which is 80 to 120% of the MSA, the area median income for that area, and that the event space and commercial kitchen for Tempe sister cities should remain the same. The revised RFP, we're hoping to issue first quarter of 2025, again with that mixed-use mid-rise project, including the workforce housing, event space, and commercial kitchen for Tempe sister cities. There is no parking required in that RFP. However, extra points will be awarded for greater than 30% workforce housing and each additional element of the International Green Building Code. And that is where that stands today, and we are looking forward to feedback and any questions.
Okay, thank you for the update. Yeah, I remember when was this item presented when the first RFP came out? Was that earlier this year?
It was sometime during the summer, probably July.
June, I think, yep.
June?
Okay.
June, yeah, okay.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
All right. I'll first open it up to any questions or comments from other commissioners. Vice Chair.
First question, what's pushing this? Is it sister cities? Is it the city council's desire to build workforce housing? What's pushing it?
This one is my understanding of this one. I just joined the city back in January of 2024. So a lot of these decisions were made prior to me coming on board, but my understanding is that Tempe Sister Cities is in need of some event space because they're very limited with that outdoor area that they have. They can't hold events year round. So they need a year-round facility that they can offer events in. And the commercial kitchen is also quite outdated, so they need an upgraded commercial kitchen. In addition, the city is looking for housing projects within the downtown, looking at increased density and providing affordable and/or workforce housing. So it was an opportunity that was considered to meet Tempe Sister Cities' needs as well as city housing strategic plan needs.
Okay, thank you for that. I understand that are both important needs, but there's also other solutions to those important needs elsewhere. And let me pull back. I was tickled pink to see that you didn't get any proposals in September. The city has spent the last 2 years putting together the General Plan 2050. Within the historic preservation component of that plan is another key element that for the first time is in that general plan, and that is the establishment of a downtown historic core. Now, this goes back decades. The first redevelopment plan, if it wasn't called that, but the first one was the Par 3 study that was put together back in 73. That's 1973. It really called for the Mill Avenue frontage, primarily at that time between 3rd and 5th. But the subsequent redevelopment plans, not the least of which was the 81, expanded on that idea of that historic core being from 3rd Street down to 6th Street with a couple of minor additions even to that. And that's from Myrtle to Maple on both sides of Mill. If you look at that area, there isn't a building in that area over 4 stories. And those buildings are in the context of Mill Avenue, primarily adjacent to other 3- and 4-story buildings. Here we have the 2-story Mill Avenue Shops building, the 2-story Hackett House building, and of course at that time we wanted to throw a 25-story high-rise right in the middle of those two, dwarfing anything around it. I agree that coming back with a lesser height is important. But I think more importantly, we put this into the General Plan 2050, approved unanimously by the public, who then turned around and approved financing for that plan to be created in this past election. Again, overwhelming support for it. It's like, if I could make a recommendation to the city council, which ultimately we will, it's put this on pause. Let's give this area its due, and let's see what the community comes up with for a plan to how to build out and protect this core area. Because I'll tell you, if the city comes along and builds even an 8-story, it ain't gonna take a developer very long to figure out he can buy one of these 3-story buildings, tear it down, build an 8-story, and he's gonna point to the cities. That would be an absolute travesty to have that happen. So from my standpoint, number one, it's a complicated site to begin with. You kind of glossed over the relocation of the utilities and whatnot. It's a complete nightmare. Possibly not as bad as it used to be, but still a nightmare. That shrinks your site. Even if you wanted to try to relocate them, where? Out onto Mill Avenue? No, it's just not gonna happen. So you're shrinking that site down. You've got essentially a pencil-thin boundary between the Hackett House and your proposed site. I tell you right now, anything less than 15 foot of separation is going to be rejected. By me, anyway. I can't speak for the rest of this group. But that is the oldest brick commercial building in Maricopa County. And it's sitting in downtown Tempe. It needs to be protected. Not only that, building this shaft of a building on the east side of it throws that building into dark shade all winter long. Utility costs, whatever, lighting, whatever of that existing building, as well as their residential units further to the west of it, there are potential lawsuits. So I think there has to be a lot more thought and a lot more community input asked for and received, and a plan put together that protects this as well as the rest of the core. Because once the domino drops, then we'll lose the core. And it might be a 2 or 3 decade process, but we'll lose the core. Everybody that worked on that general plan and a lot of people that gave input on it sees this as probably the next significant planning effort that the city needs to do as it's related to the downtown. With that, I'll see what the other commissioners have to say, but please take this back to the council and say, let's get the planning done before we start putting the buildings up. Or we're going to be really sad that we didn't do that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Vice Chair. Other questions, comments, commissioners? Anyone online?
I have a comment.
Yes, Commissioner.
I had exactly the same question as Dave. What's driving this? Because this site is really small for what you are trying to do. There are some appropriateness in the scale, like I'm not denying any high-rise, but just high-rise needs some space to the surrounding area. This seems like if even it's reduced to 12 stories, it seemed like shoved into the very tight space, and there's not much space left around it. And especially against the Hackett House, that doesn't seem right to me. And I understand if, for instance, there's a big property, I don't know who owns it, but like along the Ash and Fifth, the parking lot, and like I can see the high rise may happen there, but this is just so small. And as Dave mentioned, there's a downtown historical core, and I just can't see this project is enhancing the core, more like destroying the core to me, having such a tall building out of context. And for the Hackett House needing this event space or kitchen, I think city can figure out the funding. I understand funding is tight and limited, but just I'm just not convinced asking developer to give them something in exchange of doing this project. I sound like a broken record, but this idea center, the art center expansion didn't happen, and Farmer Art District was supposed to have library, I heard, didn't happen. I don't see art in the Farmer Art District. And I'm just afraid this somehow developer has a way not to give you the event space you want. So I agree. I would like it to be reviewed a little more carefully, and because once it gets built, it's kind of gone. The historic core, I think it will be transformed to walls. But thank you for presenting.
Thank you, Commissioner. Okay, so my 2 cents on this. So first of all, yeah, when we saw that original proposal, I got to tell you, my jaw hit the floor to see the height of that proposed building. It was absolutely absurd to even think about putting a building of that height right in the middle of the historic core of Tempe. I mean, I'm really, really happy that you got 0 proposals on this. It was a terrible idea. I'm just going to say it. So it sounds like you're already on the way to going ahead and posting this before, but I'm going to echo the other 2 commissioners. This site is a really poor place to do this. For all the reasons that they just stated, you have this momentum now with the new general plan, the historic core plan that's part of that. We have other efforts going on with this as well. If you walk down Mill and the whole historic core, central core there, you can actually walk, and there are some exceptions, but between 3rd and 6th Street, you really can't see any high rises too bad when you're just walking along Mill. If this goes up at 12 stories, forget it. That's going to be right there, less than a block to the west, and it's in the historic core. The prior proposal, like we were just talking about, that the other presenters were presenting, I mean, that's outside the core, you know, and it's in a corridor where you're already getting a lot of these higher rise buildings, and that's just kind of a done deal. But even with they have, I think, you know, some respectful ideas of treating those 2 historic buildings that are there that I think will probably work. This is not going to work with the Hackett House. I mean, it's going to be like this impending wall of doom sitting right next to it, and for all these other reasons. I don't personally feel like the city should be pushing a proposal like this just because, you know, Tempe's, you know, sister cities wants to have these improved areas. I mean, I understand the need and I would support that need, but it doesn't need to be done in conjunction with a proposal like this. So I would like to echo the other commissioners and really urging the city, going back to your planning meetings, committees, whoever you're reporting to, and just sort of express to them, hey, do we really have to go put this out right now or whenever? When did you say you were planning to put the next RFP out?
And we're looking to issue it first quarter of 2025, so
Okay,
sometime
so-
probably February, March.
Yeah, so, I mean, I don't see why it couldn't sit and have some more consideration. There could be some more thoughtful discussion and have some input for some other ideas on how to meet the needs for Tempe's sister cities, but also to really, you know, help us try to maintain this historic core, because I totally agree with the commissioners here, because the moment these developers see something like that happening right there, they're going to be on the bandwagon. And what's more, I'm going to point to one recent case anyway, where the city was really, piping up for this developer to provide this really great new space and office space for Tempe, the TCAA building. They ended up getting zero, nothing. The whole proposal went out the door. So you cannot depend on a developer to come in with something like this and with this idea of, promoting a city, enterprise. I'm not exactly sure what the relationship of Tempe Sister Cities is. Is that an actual city program or is it like an affiliated program?
Partially funded by the city.
Okay. So you can't count on a developer to come in and meet these things. And that's probably partly why you didn't get any proposals, because of this meeting space, stuff like that. It's just not a compatible, it's not compatible. So I think the city is really trying to ask too much on this. I would really like to ask from our point of view that your folks you all are working with, economic development, to maybe think this through a little more and see if there might be able to have a pause on this and maybe to go back and reconsider what the proposal would be.
Thank you.
Yes, Vice Chair.
Just to follow up, and especially you being a newbie to the process, this development document right here, it's called the PAR 3 study. It was accepted by the City Council in 1973. If you look at this document, you can find the Hackett House and essentially what became the Mill Avenue Shops. Concentrate on what this proposal showed in between those two. What you'll see is one-story restaurants and retail space along 4th Street, with 4th Street becoming a plaza. Now, this was God sent. If it was dropped out of the sky, this is what it would have looked like. A lot of things have changed. These are important pieces of property, but the gentle approach that to historic preservation, that this approach was put in place for, is what we're looking for. And what the whole community, quite frankly, is looking for from historic preservation. This community can't afford another Watson's Flower debacle as far as historic preservation, especially as it relates to commercial buildings. We don't need that at all, or we'll lose the funding that the community has set up for us in this bond to work with saving some of these structures, not only in the downtown, but elsewhere in the community that are threatened. So please do all your homework. Look at all the redevelopment plans and what they proposed or didn't propose for this site. Hopefully we'll move forward with the core plan and you can be looking at what the community really wants in a now situation before this next RFP comes out.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, unless there's any further questions or comments, we really do thank you for coming back and giving us the update, because we did have, I know a couple of us had mentioned this in between the last time you were here. We just ask you to please take our thoughts into your consideration, and we'd like to hear more about this when you get closer to whether you're going to put the RFP out or not.
Thank
That
you so
sounds-
much. Thank you for your
Sounds
time.
good.
Okay, thank
And
you
we'll
very
work with
much.
Zach on
Appreciate it.
that and keep him in the loop on things as well. Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much.
Yes. Oh, yes. One of the other commissioners online says, I wholeheartedly agree with the commissioners who have already spoken regarding the Hackett House project, and I especially echo that the developers will take this as an open door for more development. Thank you, Commissioner Melcher. Okay, all right, thank you very much.
Thank you again.
All right. Where are we now? Okay, thank you, everyone. Moving on now to the next agenda, item 7, chair and staff updates and announcements. The chair has no updates, so I will hand it over to staff for updates.
Good evening, Chair and Commission members. Ambika Adhikari, Principal Planner. Just a couple of quick updates. First of all, thank you so much for your support and good comments and input on the Character Area 6 plan, that is the Southwest Tempe Character Area Plan. It was unanimously approved and adopted by the City Council in October, so the document is available online. It was also unanimously approved in September by the DRC, so it's a long format, almost 100-page document, so that document is in place. And then we're also now planning to prepare other 2 character area plans. The final character area plan that's remaining is character area number 2, which is like Tempe Diablo. We will be beginning that process come January 2025. And because it's mostly industrial and only a few kind of neighborhoods out there, we expect that it will be done in about 6-7 months. So by August, that should be done. And then we are also looking at to update the Character Area 4, which is the Apache area plan, the Character Area Plan. That was done like 14 years ago, or 10 years ago in 2014. And there's also some interest by the city and also by the community out there to provide some more detailed updates about Victory Acres and some of the areas. So right now there's a project that the city is implementing that is like Thriving Community Project with some external support. That is continuing on and that will end by April. In the meantime, the staff will continue to go and attend some of those meetings and begin to think about the process of the update because so much has changed in the last 10 years in the Character Area 4. So in 2025, you will see a new and final Character Area Plan number 2 done hopefully by the first half of the year. And then also the update probably beginning April of 2025 and being completed by the end of the year 2025. And there are many historic properties out there. On Character Area 2, there's only one, but still many buildings will become older. So we'll continue to push the historical preservation component on both of them. And by the way, the Character Area 6, the Southwest Tempe plan, even the community looked very happy because we had more than like 25 meetings. And also we went to many of the events. And so that was that. Now also on the personal note, I've been with the city the last 8 years and I've attended the Historic Preservation Commission meeting right from the beginning. And I'm very thankful for the service of the chair and the Historic Preservation Commission members before and now. And then I'm also coming to the end of my own professional career. And so I will be retiring and my last day of work at the city of Tempe would be January 6th. So I want to thank everyone. I live here, this is home. I will be involved in the community in planning and many other things. But as a staff, that would be my last day. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much for the information, and we're going to be sad to see you go off into the sunset and retire, but that's wonderful news for you, Ambika. We very much appreciate your guidance all these years, and I know the city will be sad to see you go as well. You've been a really great source of professional guidance, I think, for the planning process, and it's much, much appreciated. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Chair and the Commission.
And I have a few updates, Chair, if you like. Want to start first with a lot of these are just kind of reminders of things that I may have contacted you about as they were happening across email, but want to kind of put them on the record per se at a meeting. Hayden Flour Mill was listed in the National Register of Historic Places back in September. So it's a major achievement, major honor, and that just in and of itself, but in terms of that ongoing planning for the ongoing planning for the redevelopment project there at that site, will be very helpful to the developer because they're now eligible to apply for federal historic tax credits. So that'll definitely assist that project moving forward. And then just beyond that, it's just a great recognition and a long overdue recognition for the Hayden Flour Mill, which has been locally designated for the last several years, but has eluded National Register recognition up until this point. Just want to remind you that the HBC yearly report, which is just a report that every board and commission has to complete and forward to the city clerk for the benefit of council. That is due here very, very soon. So I have had 5 commissioners email me to approve or provide comment sometimes, and also to at the same time approve the report. Those comments will be, as I said, forwarded to the clerk's office in the form of the final report. So if you would still like to comment, please do that as soon as possible. I'd really ask you to do that no later than tomorrow. You can just send me an email, and that will work just fine. There's been a lot of talk of the bond election, successful bond election, particularly the more than $12 million in historic preservation funding that was allotted and was approved as part of one of the bond questions. So that's obviously a major victory for historic preservation in Tempe. So just wanted to thank you, the commissioners, for your guidance in that, as well as other communities, including Rob Moore. I don't think he's still here, but he was very helpful in that process as well. And then also thanks to former Deputy City Manager and CFO Tom Dunsing, and then the current Deputy City Manager and CFO Lizette Camacho. They were all very thoughtful and I think creative in how they were able to kind of get additional funding for HP into those bond measures. So we thank them for that. One of the CIP projects that will now be funded under the bond is, one is the Downtown Historic Core Plan. Another is a proposed study of historic neighborhoods that will run from 1960 to, it's listed in the proposal as 1975. We might actually increase that to 1980 just to get a little more mileage out of it. And this will complement Scott Soliday's 2001 study of post-war neighborhoods from 1945 to 1960. So it's just time to update. That study's really overdue for an update and to extend that study. This new study will help the Historic Preservation Office. It will also help the commission, determine what other neighborhoods in the city that, may fall kind of outside, later on the timeline than that kind of early post-war period, are potentially eligible for historic designation. So hopefully we could, potentially, get some other designations, district, we hope, designations out of that at some point. So I'll be working, I've had conversations with the City of Tempe procurement, and I'll be working with them in the coming weeks to solicit bids from qualified contractors for both of those plans, as well as the other 2 studies kind of wrapped into this, which are Native American Historic Context Studies and Mexican American Historic Context Studies. Those are funded as well. So, okay. Well, one last thing, and I'll end on a down note. I'm sorry about that. I didn't really mean to do that, but that's just how it goes sometimes. Spear House. The Spear House is located at 1015 South Farmer. I notified you all about this several weeks ago. Just as a reminder, the Spear House is circa 1893 residence, significant for its association with Tempe's 1887 Farmers Edition. It's also significant as a local variant of national folk style residential architecture. It's historic eligible only. And the current owners in 2023 had received a use permit. Their plan at that time was to build a second-story addition onto the property, as well as to, I believe, demolish a historic deck as well. At that time, I contacted the National Register of Historic Places because, I had contacted the State Historic Preservation Office because, other than being historic eligible, this property is, potentially could be eligible for the National Register of Historic Places, although it's never received that kind of a official kind of eligibility review by SHPO. And I essentially asked them, if there were to be a second-story addition put on this property, would that endanger the property's eligibility? And the way that the second-story addition was proposed was such that the historic architect at the State Historic Preservation Office said that, yeah, it pretty much would kind of ruin its eligibility for the National Register. So we weren't too keen on that plan from a from a historic preservation standpoint. Although we were glad at that point, at least, to see that the house would be somewhat preserved. So things evolved, and due to the cost of construction, rising cost of construction, the owners chose not to build a second-story addition. The new plan was only for ground floor upgrades to the existing house and to rebuild the east side of the house. But apparently that was also becoming cost prohibitive according to the owners. And so they ultimately decided just to demolish the entire property and to just build or demolish the entire home and build a new home on the property. So that's where they kind of landed. When I did receive notification that demolition permit application had been received by the planning division, I reached out immediately to the homeowners and just again reminded them of the historic eligible classification that HPC had placed on the house, and just we're basically just looking for a way, if there's any way, that they would reconsider. And they told me that essentially it was just a cost issue, and that they were not going to be or willing to reconsider. And so I did, with their permission, the owner's permission, go to the house, which has essentially been kind of gutted at this point, kind of in preparation for the rehab of the house, which will no longer occur. And it's in pretty sorry shape, to be honest with you. It looks quite poor, in quite poor condition, unfortunately. I mean, I guess that's the only silver lining, is that it just, unfortunately, it has not been well maintained, at least in recent years. And so if it were preserved, it would take a considerable amount of effort to kind of bring it back to where it needed to be, if we were looking to try to rehabilitate it from a historic preservation standpoint. So I can tell you the demolition application, it's still pending. There's some additional, I'm not going to get in the weeds here, but it hasn't been demolished yet. The application's been received, but hasn't been accepted, pending the receipt of some additional documents. So that's just wanted to give you that update. That's kind of where things stand with the Spear House demolition. So again, unfortunate, but the demolition looks like it will be going through, as I mentioned via email several weeks ago. And those are the last of my updates.
Chair Woodson, I do have a couple of items.
Okay, yes.
So I wanted to remind you that this is the time of year that the Peterson House is decorated for the holidays and open for the weekend regularly. We had our first weekend already, and the next 2 weekends are your chance to go see, or anyone's chance to go see the house. And there's vendors and decorations. It's lovely. I believe the hours are 11 to 3 on Saturday and Sunday for the next 2 weekends. The other item is, you know, per ordinance, the museum manager sits on this commission, and I've been promoted to Deputy Director of Arts and Culture starting December 30th. So there will be another designee who will be here, likely our new historic house coordinator, Jen Sweeney, and when she's not here, then whoever is the acting manager who becomes a manager. But Jen Sweeney is very knowledgeable about historic house preservation and is eager to learn more. And she's the one who plans all of our tours, events, and programs at the historic houses. So you'll get to know her, and I've really enjoyed being a part of this commission. And I won't be going away. I'm still here, but I won't be here sitting at the meetings in the future from January on.
Okay, well, thank you, Brenda, and congratulations to you. And yeah, you've had a pretty long tenure there at the museum. So, and I'm sorry, what's your new position once more?
I'm the Deputy Director of Arts and Culture, so I'll be overseeing public art, community arts, Tempe Center for the Arts, and
great.
museum historic houses.
Fantastic.
So, yeah, just at the next level.
Are you still, is that still in the same complex there at the?
Yeah, my office will be in the second floor of the library. If you would like to come and visit
Sure.
me, you're more than welcome.
Okay, great. Well, good luck to you, and we look forward to meeting your replacement at some point. Great. Okay, and thank you for the update. And Dr. Lecter, thank you too. And yeah, in regard to the Spear House, you know, again, I mean, yeah, it's regretful, and we appreciate your efforts to try to work with the homeowner. And, you know, I like to think that, you know, now that, again, this new bond, you know, election, that maybe that might have been something that could have helped, but, you know, not knowing exactly how that's going to work. And it sounded like this property needed a lot of effort, you know, which, you know, again, we may be seeing more of those situations coming up. But, you know, I mean, I guess you can only do so much when it comes, and then the bond passing is fantastic. So this has been in my mind, this last couple of years has been really excellent for, you know, historic preservation efforts for the city. And I'm really pleased with the results of that, and, you know, the general plan and other elements of the, you know, sort of historic core planning and other character studies. I think it's really done a lot of really good work for historic preservation for the city. So we thank you all for your efforts, and we look forward to continuing to advise and assist.
Yeah. Thanks, Chair.
Okay, is that all for updates and announcements? Okay, all right, well, thank you, everyone. I guess we'll move on to adjourn the meeting, and it's, what time is it now? It's 7:44, so we'll
You have
adjourn.
a motion to adjourn?
Oh, yes,
Chair?
motion to adjourn, yes, sorry. Anyone?
So moved.
Okay, second.
Second, Commissioner Williams.
All right, thank you. Then we shall adjourn now at 7:44. Thank you.
Thank you.